Flipping it backwards, it's play on, picking it up, Copley's away, he goes to Tompkins, Copley, for Copley, he won the race. Copley on his outside, it's a double!
Copley! Outside, he's also got Copley, and Copley will score the try.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Life in Sport podcast. I'm CJ, and I'm joined by former Brisbane Broncos, Titans, and Roosters winger Dale Copley. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, how's your day going? It's pretty early, but how's it going so far?
Yeah, it's good. Like to be up early, so that's no issue for me. And thanks for having me.
That's all good. Pleasure's all mine. So, I mean, let's get started, obviously. Always got to start with the early days. You're born in Ingham, but you moved to Brisbane at a young age. What was it like growing up in Brisbane, basically around a massive rugby league sort of culture, playing baseball?
Yeah, it was I really, great upbringing. I certainly can't complain with that. My parents provided everything that a kid could ever want. I was allowed to play whatever sport I wanted. Grew up down the road from a sort of Brisbane rugby league before the Broncos were in. He was a bit of a sort of legend, Ziggy Strasser. So he had two sons that were a year on either side of me, one older, one younger. So to say it was a pretty footy, crazy street that we lived in, statement. So yeah, that was my growing up until I think I was about 13 when we moved out of that street. But still keep in contact with those two boys, and yeah, we just lived and breathed sport. Whatever was on the TV, we were playing for 2 weeks during January. We were Leighton Hewitt in person on the street. During the summer, we were trying to spin the ball like Shane Warne, rather unsuccessfully, but. And then obviously during winter it was all footy. It was a great time. It was probably a little bit different to now, where kids were just allowed to play on the street without their parents until dark. It was a really great time. Obviously in a rugby league crazy city.
Did you follow the Broncos growing up?
I did. I was a diehard.
Bit of a tragic, would you say, or yeah?
Massively. My mum tells a rather embarrassing story about the day Alf retired the first time.
Yep.
I can't really remember how old I was. I was probably 7 or 8.
Yep.
So I was at primary school, and I cried myself to sleep. Mum picked me up from school and told me the news.
I've got a very similar story. The 06 grand final. I was at the 06 grand final Broncos Storm. As I'm sure you know, Shane Webke's last game. I was, I think, 10 or 11. And as the final siren goes, obviously the Broncos are champions, but it comes over me realizing it's Webke's last game, and I just bawl like for about 10, 20 minutes. Yeah,
I've been there. Don't worry. But yeah, his come mid-year. I remember it was like a bit of a shock. I didn't even have the ecstasy of the premiership to make me a little bit happy. So yeah, I was a tragic, that's for sure. Absolutely loved everything about the club, and yeah, which made it really special. Obviously being able to debut, and Alf was an assistant coach when I first came in.
That would have been like goosebumps, like shit, he knows my name sort of thing. And tendenting into that, obviously you went from baseball to rugby league. Well, as you said, multiple sports in general. So what was the decision? Well, what was behind the decision to stop baseball, which you were quite good at from what I've been able to research, and you chose to focus your full sporting efforts on rugby league? What was the decision, process behind that?
Yeah, I remember it quite vividly. It was kind of crazy. I was 14, but it felt like I was making this huge decision. I just played like a state carnival up in Townsville. The Broncos had offered me a contract. Now, the rules with baseball is that Major League Baseball clubs can't, or back then, I'm not sure if they've changed now, but Major League Baseball clubs couldn't talk to players until they turned 16. So I was still years before that. So one club broke the rules and took my parents out for dinner, but I was quite sought after. Or I was going to be once I hit my 16th birthday. So it got to the stage where the baseball season and rugby league season were crossing over. Both sports wanted more. They weren't happy with just summer of baseball and winter of football. Football wanted, a little preseason before the season started, and then baseball wanted, a similar thing through the winter. So I got to the stage where I just couldn't do it. There wasn't enough out the day. So, when the Broncos offered me my contract, obviously being an absolute tragic and, huge rugby league fan, that was the decision I went with, quite obviously. But it was big at the time. Like
as you said, you may have thought it was life-changing, but it kind of was, given how your life, the trajectory that it turned out. Yeah,
well, I get asked the question a lot from people that sort of knew my baseball history. Do you have any regrets, or, do you ever wonder what life could have been? Like, it's pretty natural to ponder on those things. I think I had a few mates that did sign and go over there, and, they got to travel the world and play baseball. Wow. And, that's pretty cool, pretty awesome too. But none of them were able to crack the big leagues, which is, and as 14-year-old, obviously I lent on my parents a fair bit, and that was kind of the conversation was, I was pretty good in Australia, but we're a pretty small market in terms of baseball.
Yeah.
There's probably millions of kids as talented, if not more than me in America.
Exactly. Yep. You may have been 1 in a million here, but you were like 1 in a billion, for lack of a better term, over there, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course. So that kind of came into it. I was pretty, being Australia and rugby league, you kind of know where you sit in the things, I guess. So it felt like a big decision. It's kind of weird looking.
Oh, it absolutely was.
At 14, but certainly no regrets. I had a pretty fulfilling rugby league career, but it is interesting to think like what could have happened.
Yeah, like you never know. You could have ended up being, the #1 Australian export in the MLB, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, it's you don't know. It's all those questions that will never get answered, but probably could have gone to the Olympics. Like that was, probably a pretty reasonable trajectory at the very least. So, it would have been an interesting career path too, no doubt. But it would have required moving to another country.
Yeah.
At 17,
trying to settle into that life and all that. Yeah, it would have been.
The big leagues is all, there's plenty of money in that. Fly private jets, but in the minors, it's buses all the way around to, America, which is a big country. So it's not all glamorous before you get to the big league. So
same with NRL, more or less as well. Like it's your own peanuts really all the way up until the NRL. So let's tangent into that for a little bit. Obviously, as you said, 14, you signed with the Broncos, their youth academy, that sort of stuff. What was it like the first day going into like the Broncos facilities, and at what point did you realize after signing that contract, etc., okay, I'm going to give it like, I can make it, I believe in myself, sort of thing?
Oh, I think at the time when I signed at 14, it was like sort of everyone that you'd played rep footy with at that age was kind of getting signed by a club. So it was just kind of par for the course. Like it was kind of expected that I would sign with someone, but it was obviously really exciting to sign with the Broncos. All the kids in Queensland, that was the club.
Yeah, that you wanted to sign with.
Southeast Queensland. And then I think might have been a year or two later, the Titans came in and started going pretty aggressive at a lot of the kids in Southeast Queensland, like Ryan James signed at that time.
Yep. Well, Ryan James is from where my partner is from, which is where I'm at the moment in Tweed Heads. He went to the school that my partner went to. So,
So we're still pretty good mates, speak quite regularly. But
how's he? Sorry to tangent in real quick. How's he adjusting to the Broncos? Because you've been at both clubs, the Titans and the Broncos, and now he has as well. Have you spoken to him and how he's adjusting at the Broncos?
Yeah, he lives down the Gold Coast at his family home. So when he has some late trainings and early starts the next morning, he'll quite often stay at my place. So we get on really well. He's finding it really good. He obviously went down to Canberra for a year. So
yes, he did.
Certainly enjoying being back home, being back around his family, and
in
the Queensland weather a bit more. And certainly appreciate that more as we come into the colder months down there. So
Absolutely.
he's really enjoying it. He's in good shape.
He's looking fit in the training videos I've seen.
Yeah, and he played really well for Indigenous All Stars the other night. So
Yes, he did.
yeah, I think he'll have a really good year, and he's really enjoying himself up here. So
Yeah, we could. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just like, hang on. Yeah, that's a great segue. Continue with what you were saying about, it was basically expected that you'd sign with a club. You signed with the Broncos. The Titans come in around that time as well, and they were poaching a bit of everyone as well. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think at that stage I thought, oh, this is like I'm a chance of making it here, and then sort of just finished your school footy. I year 12 broke my wrist, which became a theme of my career, but didn't play much footy in year 12. And then I was just really excited. The NYC started in my year 12.
It did, yeah.
The Broncos made the grand final that year, which was awesome. So like to go into the preseason that following year was that was really like exciting for all of us kids coming out of school. We got the chance to wear all the Broncos training kit and show up at the same gym that the first graders did.
How'd that feel?
And that was cool. Like that was huge for kids that were leaving school. And obviously it's been pretty well documented, the challenges that were associated with getting all the training gear and being able to live that life. So, then like 4 months later or something, fair little injury crisis in the first grade side, and then Origin comes and got to debut, which come way quicker than I thought. And it probably wasn't until I think I started training with the first grade squad like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before
the debut.
And that was probably the time where I was like, whoa, this is a chance of actually happening. It sort of just came so quickly. It wasn't a thing where I knew 3 years before. It was literally like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
And the week of your debut, because obviously those 2 to 3 weeks, it would have been like, aren't I going to debut? Maybe this week, maybe not. And then the week that you actually do get your debut, talk me through, or talk us, any listeners, etc., about the process from when they told you, right, you're starting this week, you're getting your debut, to running onto the field and finishing the game and everything involved with that.
Yeah, it was back when Monday night footy was getting played. So we played Monday night
footy,
Dark Park at on a cold, miserable night in Cronulla. So I knew for probably not quite 2 weeks, but probably 10 days that I was going to play.
Well, because it was the Monday, so yeah, you would have had that bit of extra time.
We came off a bye because it was in Oregon. We came off a bye, so I think I found out like that Thursday or Friday, the week and a bit before.
Okay.
So I had a long time to prepare, but yeah, obviously extremely nervous. I was playing fullback. I played fullback, which I'd played a little bit in the 20s, but hadn't really played a lot of. So yeah, that was a bit foreign as well. But I trained there, obviously, for the week and a bit. Then yeah, we ended up getting flogged by about 40 odd that night. Blake Ferguson scored four tries. Yeah, so it was a pretty ordinary night. I had a bit of a shocker.
Hey, you got a debut, which is, I mean, that's more than what I've ever done in the NRL.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was hard to not be excited by that moment, but also when you get beaten that bad,
it humbles you a little bit.
Certainly straight after the game, it was a bit sort of sombering, but then the next day when you sort of wake up and realize,
hey, I'm an NRL player,
and you'd achieved a dream that you'd dreamt since you were 5.
Did you manage to fly a family down? Were they able to get to the game for you?
Yeah, so the club flew my mum, dad, sister down, and they all got to stay at the hotel, which was another different thing for me. Like when you're in 20s, you fly down on the day of the game. So we flew down the day before, so that was all. It was all new. It was all really exciting. And then mum and dad obviously got to come, and my sister got to come and share the moment, which was good for them too, because they'd obviously done a lot of Ks in the car. Around to training and game.
No, that's awesome. And obviously nowadays it's a big thing of like jersey presentation for the debut. Did that happen for you? And if so, who presented you your jersey?
Um, it wasn't like it is now.
Mm.
I actually can't really remember.
Mhm.
I think it just got announced. There was me, Benny Hunt, and Guy Williams debuted on the same night.
Yep.
But that was from it obviously wasn't. Yes, it certainly wasn't done like it is now with
Yeah.
the families coming in and stuff, because I can't remember any of that. So
No, that's fair.
yeah, it's a bit different. I love how they do it now. It's
Oh, it is, isn't it awesome?
yeah, it's great.
And speaking of the Broncos and your debut, you a few weeks later got your first try in the NRL, which was against a team that you'd end up playing for, which was the Titans, and it was on the Gold Coast. What was it like? And how did you, obviously in the moment, how did you feel after getting your first try?
Yeah, that was really exciting. I think again we got beaten pretty convincingly, and it was right at the end of the game. I think it might have been like 7 or 8 minutes left, and Podjo like flicked it through his.
He did. It flicked past.
Yeah, and then crazy thing. A couple of years later, I scored one against the Titans at Suncorp, pretty much identical. Like I think there's video on my Instagram that's like it compares the two, and it's like it's crazy. It's
wow,
mind blowing, really. Like the two same players against the same team. Yeah, in the same,
just years apart. Yeah, well, I'll definitely pop that into the episode, footage, so people can see what you're talking about, because yeah, it was more or less it was literally looking in a mirror, more or less. It's crazy. And then obviously after your time at the Broncos, because you went until 2015, and then you went down to the Roosters for a little bit. What was it like? The sea change, the even the facilities change and all that sort of stuff at the Roosters.
Yeah, that was an experience. Probably, before that time, I thought like players always moved clubs and it was moved cities, and it was, you just did it, and it was not going to be a huge adjustment. We'd move to Sydney. Sydney would be a great place to live.
It's so different.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Yeah, so I'd sort of lived. I'm not at home. I was out of home, but I was very close to my parents. I had all my family, friends that I'd gone to school.
You had your support network.
Everyone was close. Then I went down there and had none of that. I was by myself. I couldn't just pop round to my mates or mum and dad's or anyone that I was close with. So yeah, I probably underestimated how big that change was going to be for me. And for my whole life, all I had to focus on was rugby league, and
because everything else was your off-field stuff.
Everything else was fine and taken care of, and I didn't have to put how to get to training in my GPS. Like,
yeah.
When you go down there and like, I don't know where Woolies is, I don't know where anything is.
Wow.
Which like sounds very simple, and it is. Like I understand that, but I didn't appreciate the challenge that I then had off the field, which still in reality wasn't a huge challenge. But do
you think it impacted your on-field performances? Maybe.
I think it combined. Well, I ended up getting injured really early at the Roosters, so that gave me 3 months really to settle in. And I think once I got back on the field, I had settled in and it was fine.
Yeah,
but
definitely,
it did take an adjustment. And then there was it was a totally different club, different coaches, different facilities, different everything. So I always thought clubs were run really similar, and to a point they are, but they've certainly got their
differences
that make them unique, and it's why the word culture is spoken about so much, because they are different. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, it took a little bit of adjusting, and it was
And what was the main differences that you noticed at the club, like as in going from the Broncos to the Roosters, as in whether it was the facilities or Robbo had a different way of doing things, sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I'd just come from, we had Wayne for 2015, obviously. And obviously he's well publicised as how good he'd been
mate,
to the point, and still obviously going, really well. And then went down to the Roosters, and Robbo kind of certainly a different era of coach, like a lot younger, a few different ideas. And I think just the technical side of footy I'd never really appreciated or learnt. Wayne was probably more let his players sort of work it out for themselves, I suppose, and didn't give a lot of like really technical coaching.
Yep.
And Robbo was like on the opposite scale of that and was extremely technical. And so that was that took a bit of getting used to, because I suppose the focus going into a game would be, you know, with Wayne, it'd be, I've got to, you know, it was all the like intangible sort of stuff. Like, got to bring good energy, you know, like that don't take skill, I suppose. And then Robbo going into a game, it's like, we got to get to here, then we got to do this. Like, it was just a different mindset. And both obviously work really.
Absolutely.
So that was a really good lesson in that, certainly in rugby league, but I think it probably corresponds to life as well. There's plenty of ways to skin a cat, and what you've got to understand is that what you believe in, you've got to live, and you've got to get the people around you that buy into your philosophy, and then you can make it work if you're genuine about it. So
absolutely,
that was a really good lesson, just in life for me, was seeing two people extremely successful, both of them, and Robbo will go on and win many more comps as well.
Absolutely.
So 15, 20 years time, he could be up there in the conversation with Wayne, you know? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was a great lesson in the fact that two guys completely different.
Yeah.
Coaching,
but they both get the results.
But they both get the results. So yeah, it's less a case of how you do it as to who you get involved and getting players to buy into what you're doing. So, and I think that's probably pretty transferable across business in general. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. And then obviously after the Roosters, you came back up to Queensland and played for the Titans for a bit. What was it like? Well, not for a bit, but for a few years. Unfortunately, had a unfortunate run of injuries while you were at the Titans. But what was it like, you know, being able to, like you said, come back up to Queensland on the Goldie, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was obviously, I got told in sort of October-ish, I think, from the Roosters that they'd decided to turn Latrell into a centre, which worked out pretty well.
For them, yeah, it did.
Yeah, so that meant I had to move on, which was fine. But I really wanted to get back to Queensland. I was missing home. So that's why it took a while, because I was pretty set that it was either the Broncos or the Titans, and the Broncos, I just left there, so that wasn't going to happen. So it was really the Titans. I was waiting out on them, and they sort of showed a bit of interest early. And then anyway, I ended up starting that next season playing New South Wales Cup for a while. And then it was funny how it works. We played Newcastle in New South Wales Cup as the organizer to the Titans Newcastle.
Yeah, because you guys would have been the feeder club. Yeah.
Yeah, the Titans had about 6 injuries that day.
Yeah.
A lot of outside backs. And then it pretty much had to happen. They pretty much had no players left. So it was, it's just funny how it works. But it was good to come back to Queensland. I certainly missed being around family, friends. So coming back was,
weather.
It was, the weather unbeatable up here. So, but yeah, very tumultuous couple of years there with coaches changing and the ownership changing. It was, I'd gone from obviously the Broncos are financially very, very stable, the Roosters the same, and then came to the Titans, and that opened my eyes as to just probably there's a perception out there that the salary cap makes the comp even. Everyone spends the same amount of money, but it's far from that. It's not even close to being even. So that's changed now with the new owners. The club's certainly a different place to back in 2017 when I got there. So yeah, but that was an eye opener as to just how the comp's not really as
it's really not. Like, I mean, even though I'm not, you know, in the know as a player would be, but it definitely, like, there's a reason why there's, you know, 3 to 4, maybe 5 top teams every year. Like, it's you can't deny that. And 2017, you played the Broncos at Suncorp, which I was actually at that game. That was actually my first ever Broncos game at Suncorp. Which, so it was weird to see. It's just my experience seeing you in a Titans gear after I'd seen you like play for the Broncos down in Sydney sort of stuff because I grew up on the Central Coast. And so I come up Suncorp and you're in a Titans gear, and I actually think you scored a try that game. I may be wrong, but what was it like playing the Broncos against them at Suncorp?
Yeah, that was strange. I'd done it the year before playing for the Roosters, so but yeah, there was something about the Queensland derby that being on the other side was a bit strange, and I probably felt that playing against the Broncos every time I did after I left. It was just obviously had a soft spot for that club, and then sort of having left, and it was just a different feeling when I'd play against the Broncos. So and certainly there's no better place to play than Suncorp, whether you're on the home team or away team. It's pretty unbeatable. So
it's amazing. Yeah. Well, it really is amazing. As in I've not played, but I've been there for Broncos games, and when I tell you, like, I got goosebumps, it felt like a homecoming of sorts going to Suncorp for the first time in 2017. Like, I was born in Brisbane, but, down on the Central Coast from when I was 4, so I'd never got the chance to see the Broncos in Brisbane. I'd seen them in Sydney heaps, but never up there. And, oh, mate, when I tell you, it was electric. It was amazing. I think it actually was a Good Friday game in 2017 against the Titans. Yeah, I remember it as if it was yesterday. And yeah, you did play, and it was so interesting to watch. And it was a good game regardless. I think the Broncos did get the win, but it was still great to see, and what better way to see it than the derby as well, the Broncos Titans. But that's enough about me, because this episode and interview is about you. Obviously you then went on to play for the Roosters again and the Broncos again before you finished up last year. What was it like going back to the Broncos after playing so many years against them, sort of thing? You went back in 2021. From my experience, when I saw that that the Broncos had re-signed you, I was over the moon. I was like, yes, because you had a great season the year before. It was, even though I don't know if you were injured that year or not, but you had a great run of form individually at the back end of that season. I'm like, I'm so keen that you and David Mead were all back. It's like, yes, let's go.
Yeah, it was very different. Like, it was a completely different club from when I left. So it was obviously 5 years different. And in that time, there's pretty much I think there was only like 2 or 3 players left from 15 when I was the class. So it was very different. Like the facility had moved over the road, so it wasn't in the same training facility.
Did you have to put that in the GPS?
Nah, it's the same address. It's just across the road. So I knew how to get there, which was a good start. But obviously, new coach. Kev was assistant back in 15 when I left, so I was familiar with him.
And Alf was still there, of course.
Alf was still there, but yeah, there was just a lot of changes. The playing group was just completely different. It was pretty well brand new, bar probably 3 or 4. I think Milf, Oatsy, and Macca, and Macca ended up leaving. So
he did, yeah.
It was a brand new playing group, very, very young group, which was okay, because the Titans the year before was pretty identical. We had probably 5 or 6 of us older fellas, and then
the rest were youngsters.
So I that didn't really bother me, but it was brand new facility, which is like, What
was the facility like compared to how it was when you were there last?
Oh, you can't compare. It'd be 4 times the size. It's like walking in, like what you expect to walk into at those big American colleges and
okay.
In America, it's just like all the weights have got the Broncos head on them. Like it's pretty special. So that was it was pretty good to be able to train there and experience that. And it was obviously a bit of a disappointing sort of year. I didn't get to play much first grade and had a few really sort of unfortunate injuries early in the season. So it was got to play a few games, but probably not the way I would have planned it if I could.
And then you went on loan to the Roosters. I think it was loan, because the Roosters were just decimated last year, and there was a loan system last year and the year before for teams and stuff. Mainly the year before, and you went down to the Roosters. What was that like? Being basically told, "Hey, you're going to the Roosters for a bit," sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it kind of happened quite quickly.
Mm.
Obviously, the Roosters, as you said, were decimated with injury and sort of struggling for outside back. So when they obviously reached out, I wasn't playing first grade, and because of COVID and the bubble, we weren't able to play Queensland Cup either. So we were in a little mini preseason getting flogged. So it
Wasn't fun.
Wasn't fun. So the chance to play footy, and at that stage, that was kind of when I hadn't made my mind up, but that was probably when I was thinking, oh, this is probably going to be my last year. So when they reached out and gave me the chance, and made it even more palatable that they were based at the Sunshine Coast.
Yes.
Everyone had moved up, so didn't have to move to Sydney, just drive an hour up the road and live at a holiday resort. So
yeah,
there was no negatives in my book. So yeah, jumped at that chance. I got obviously the chance to rejoin a group that had done some extremely special things since I'd left, and the core of that was still together.
Yeah,
I got to really just see how far they'd come from when I was there last time, and it's pretty special club, and they obviously deserve everything they get, and success won't be, the ultimate success won't be far away for them again. I'm positive of that. So yeah, it was great to be able to finish off, in a final series, and I got to work with guys like Teddy, who I'd never played with, and it was pretty special. So yeah, it was good to go out as a Rooster.
Yeah, nice. And speaking of going out, talking about retirement, as you said, you weren't far off, making the decision around that time. At what point did you realize, I'm done, I can't do another preseason, or whatever the decision was behind it? At what point last year were you like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore, I can't do it anymore, sort of thing?
Well, during those last few weeks that I was at the Broncos, that's where I was thinking, oh, this is probably it. And then when I went to the Roosters, it was just a bit of a shot in the arm that I needed. I sort of went there and got to play first grade again, which I suppose when you're not playing and you're not getting picked, particularly the Broncos weren't winning, you probably start thinking, like, it's just natural to think, am I still up to this? Do I still have it in me? All those questions go through your head. And then I went to the Roosters, and kind of funny, but my first game for the Roosters is against the Broncos.
It was, yeah.
And played quite well that night, sorry. And that was just the shot in the arm that made me think, I can still do this. I can still play to the standard that's required. I just need to be in a good environment, I guess. And then, so played that game, and then we played the Dragons in Toowoomba the next week. 2 minutes into the game, I roll over on my ankle, and turns out broke my foot, and played 78 minutes on it. So the next day, it's as size of an elephant's hoof.
Yeah.
And that was probably it. That was probably where I thought, my body is telling me it's not up to it. It can't keep doing this. Like, no one was near me. I just tried to step and rolled over on my ankle, which, injuries were a huge theme of my whole career. So it probably shouldn't come as a surprise, but that was probably the moment where I was set that's it. And then I worked really hard to try and sort of make myself available, and I was 18th man for the finals game. But yeah, that was probably it. That was probably it when I broke my foot in Toowoomba that night, that afternoon, and battled on pretty bravely. But yeah,
no, that's fair. And off field, throughout your time in the NRL, you've done, I may be wrong, a law degree. And how's that been going? And from what I've seen, I think you completed it and you're doing masters, or maybe I've got that wrong. But how? Pardon?
Not quite done. So I'll finish in June. I'm just about to start my last semester. So
wow,
yeah, that's pretty exciting. I started.
How's that been going?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a journey. I started back in 2014.
Yep.
I started a pharmacy degree first when I first came out of school, but it was quite hard given the amount of lab work.
That compared to law, or was it hard
Yeah.
because you couldn't make the lab work?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. The contact hours on university campus just made it really, really hard whilst trying to pursue a rugby league career. So in 2013, I did my knee and missed the whole season, and I just wasn't enjoying my uni, and it's like, this is too hard. So I had a good think about what I wanted to do, and come up with, enrolled in law at QUT, and been doing that since 2014. So
Part-time?
Long journey. Yeah, part-time. I sort of floated between doing 2 subjects a semester and 1 subject. I wish I'd done 2 all the way through and I would have been done, but that's the way it is. And yeah, I'm nearly done now. So
That's awesome.
Come June, I'll have my degree, and then
Are you going to go for your masters or not sure yet?
probably not. I've got to do PLT first, which is another couple of months to get fully ticked off and become a practicing solicitor. So I'll probably do that first, and then I'll probably overstudy. It's been so long. So I'll probably have a break at least, and then I dare say I won't go back and do my masters, but stranger things have happened, and we'll get that done first, and then we'll reassess.
Yeah, nice. And how did you handle as you said, sometimes you did 1 subject a semester or 2, just depending on, the NRL and all that sort of stuff. But how did you handle the, for lack of a better term, workload of an intense degree such as law and NRL? And was the uni QUT very facilitating for you regarding, being an NRL, having that commitment as well? Yeah,
the uni was absolutely brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of QUT. At the time, I think it's changed now, but I was studying at UQ, University of Queensland, my pharmacy degree, and they didn't have a elite athlete program at that time.
Oh, okay.
I think that's changed now, but I had the straw that broke the camel's back was I had an exam at 3:30 for a pharmacy subject, but it was like data analysis. So it was run by the maths department, and there was a maths professor. So we played that night at Suncorp 7:30. So obviously I had to be there at like 5.
Yeah.
2 hours. I just couldn't work.
Yeah.
So it might have been a 3 o'clock exam, because I remember having like 15. The professor came back to me and said, "I've looked, you don't play till 7:30. You'll have plenty of time to get from the exam to." You're
like, yeah, but you don't understand. I need to be there 2 hours before to warm up, do everything. Fuck.
He had no clue. So that was
wow.
Like when I saw the email, I had to read it about 3 times.
So to realize, like, hang on, is he serious?
Yeah. So I wrote back and I said, "I'm sorry, but I've got to be there 2.5 hours before to get prepped. Like, I'm not."
So unfacilitating,
but I'm not playing,
under 20s
with my mates. Like, it's pretty serious.
It's the NRL. Like,
so that was kind of the straw that I went, "Oh, okay, this isn't, like, they're not helping me. Like, I need a bit of help here." So that was the reason I was always changing degrees, but I also changed unis to QUT because they had an elite athlete program and they were absolutely brilliant.
Wow.
As I said, that has changed. I'm pretty sure at UQ, I think they do have an elite athlete program now, so it'd be very different. But that was my experience when I was there.
Yep.
QUT, on the other hand, were absolutely brilliant. Anytime I needed an exam change, an extension on an assignment, they facilitated that without a fuss. It was absolutely brilliant. In terms of like the time management stuff, that was obviously a challenge, particularly coming into the second semester. I always found easier because exams were in November.
Yep.
So generally you're in your holiday period
from the NRL anyway.
For a lot of the semester. The hard one was the first semester because exams are in June, which is smack bang in the middle of like Origin period, which
when you'd be getting the call up to play for the teams, because they've got
or you're traveling a bit more. Broncos seem to always play more away games, and I'm not sure if that's actually true, but that's what it felt like during Origin.
Well, it was like I don't know about during Origin, but I definitely know it was like the Broncos played 12 home games and 14 away games last year, so that's definitely more away games than home games. Yeah, so it was just that was the difficult period, was that like
May, June period where I'm coming into exams. That was the hard thing. But yeah, I just always knew footy wasn't lasting forever. You don't sort of, and unfortunately not all players sort of respect that, but I always knew it was coming. I knew I had to be prepared. Otherwise I'd go through a period where it'd be quite tough. So I just made sure I did it. It was just no question. I just had to do it. I had to, stay up later some nights. I had to say no to mates wanting to go to the pub on a Saturday, or there was just
sacrifices you do.
Yeah, it's just things I had to sacrifice, and I just did that because I knew I had to. So, but you do, I did have to be good with time management. I picked law because I do like reading. There's a lot of judgments which I don't like reading, which are very boring, but generally I'm a pretty good reader, so that hasn't been an issue for me. So
yeah, well, I mean, are those Harry Potter books up there yours?
They are, yeah. That's a throwback to my childhood.
Very nice.
I understand you're a Harry Potter fan because you could.
I could tell. Absolutely, I'm a Harry Potter fan. Yes, I've got those same books not with me at the moment because I'm currently in the process of moving. But yes, absolutely. What's your favorite Harry Potter book?
And
movie?
I find the first one hard to go past because it just grabs you. It just grabbed me as a. Yeah, I remember I was grade 5. My teacher read the first book to us, and it was all over. Which is strange because, like, now if someone gives me a TV series or something that's not half believable, like I'm not interested. But Harry Potter, I suppose, because I've got.
What house are you in? Do you reckon? Do you align with? Probably Ravenclaw with the smarts with law.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think Gryffindor, but we don't know.
No, that's fair. Back into some. Well, let's go for some English, CJ. Jesus. Let's go with some fun, quick-fire type questions. First of all, how do you like your steak?
Medium or medium rare.
What's your beer or alcoholic beverage of choice?
I like Great Northern.
Yes.
The beer from up here. But I have enjoyed the new better beer that's come out. So Great Northern. If I'm at a pub and it's on tap, I can't go past that.
Yep, I'm on to Great Northerns and Bolters, but recently I tried the Bundaberg ginger beer alcoholic. Like I've had the James Squires and all that, and the Brookvale Unions. Thought they're all right, but like obviously Bundaberg's going to do it best when they've already got ginger beer. It's so good. If you haven't tried it, definitely get onto it.
I haven't, but I do like the Squires and the Brookvale one. So
definitely get onto the Bundaberg ones. They're much sweeter. They're much more ginger beery than the other two. Yeah, absolutely. Netflix show or binge that you watched during lockdown last year and the year before?
Probably Power was probably the first lockdown. I love that. I binged Game of Thrones. I was a bit late to the party there, so I watched that. And they're probably the two. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I'm sorry, this is a question not about the quickfire though, but how was the bubble in the NRL last year in 2021 compared to the, you could say, emergency bubble they had to create in 2020?
Well, I think the one in 2020 was a bit. It was stricter, but I think the uncertainty of the situation that the world was going in made it a little bit more understandable, and I think
a bit easier for you.
A bit easier to wrap your head around because the world was
everything just shut down.
No one knew what we were dealing with, and it was sort of chaos around the world. So everyone kind of knew, all right, this is real. This is what we've got to do. There was, I was involved in the discussions with the NRL about pay cuts, and like there was genuine fear that the season won't happen at all and we won't get paid. So it was like the alertness was like, whoa, this is real. This is what we got to do. Yep. But then last year it was like everyone was pretty fatigued by it from the year before because the kind of messaging coming out of the NRL was there won't be any more bubbles. We're done with that. And then
look what happened.
Boom, bubble again. And it sort of hit me because I was like, I'm not doing this again. And that was probably another
factor,
another reason why I sort of wasn't enjoying my footy as well as should be, because like it was just life was so boring. Like you go to training and come home, that's all you could do. Couldn't go down to Woolies. So yeah, the 2021 one was really difficult. And going up the coast to stay at Twin Waters was great, because we had the whole
hotel to
hotel. So we had space to move. We could go.
You also had teammates that you could, hang out with if you needed to. Yeah.
You had a social life, whereas you pretty much didn't, other than the people you lived with.
In the 2020?
In 2021, when I was living at home.
Yep.
You couldn't do anything. So yeah, the 2021 was difficult, but I think we all understood the gravity of the situation. Last year was really hard. Mentally, just the fatigue of the year before, it was like, oh no, not again. They've told us we're not going.
Because then because in 2020, as I'm sure you know, you ended up doing like 20 rounds in a row, like from 10 weeks off. And you were only given about 3 weeks, from what I'm led to believe, as a preseason. So how did you handle that preseason in 2020? That second preseason.
Yeah, well, at the Titans, they were really good. So we all kept training. We all had to download this app on our phone, so they could see the kilometers we were running.
There's no getting out of it.
No, there was no getting out of it, and we were quite well prepared.
Yeah.
Where they could, obviously they didn't have unlimited access to gym equipment, but they set up a lot of us with home gyms. So whilst we only had a 3-week organized preseason as a team, everyone kept training. We had Zoom calls twice a week, I think, just to update the coaches on what we were doing, how we were training, like our routine for the day, just so that people weren't lost in waking up at midday.
Yeah.
And just living like a real off season, So, and then obviously the Zoom calls helped with having a bit of a social life, because everyone was in lockdown at that stage.
Yeah.
So you couldn't see mates outside of footy. You couldn't. So yeah, that was important. I think the Titans handled that really well, and that probably showed at the back end of that 2020 season, where I think we won 5 or 6 in a row.
You did.
So I think we handled that as a club quite well. From what I sort of have gathered talking to the Broncos boys, they didn't handle it as well, and that's probably why their season
that's definitely part of the reason as to how it went and how it did.
Yeah, upon resumption. So yeah, that was a real challenge for all clubs, how to handle that. So, and
then there was also new rules, not just that, but new rules that you had to adjust to, like the 6 again and all that. How did you personally handle those changes? Because firstly, you've got the 3-week preseason, which, as you said, you guys did that pretty well, kept fit, and then throw new rules into the mix. 1 ref, 6 again, all that sort of stuff.
Controversial now, CJ. Yeah, well, that was as if the challenges weren't hard enough. The game went and just made all these crazy rule changes.
I personally am a fan of bringing back just 1 ref, but I'm definitely on the fence still about the 6 again. Sorry, continue.
I think their intention with the 6 again is good. I think we're going to see over the next 12 to 18 months, I think we're going to see a lot less structured football. And I think the innovative young coaches, that's probably a bit too stereotypical, but I think there'll be the innovative coaches that can think out of the box. I think are going to really sell in the new
era, you could say.
New era, yeah. Well, it is. It's a different game.
It's very reminiscent of the early 2000s. It's got hints of early 2000s, like that type of free flowing.
Yeah,
but it's definitely. I do like the adjustment they've made to the 6 again this year, like coming into this season.
I think clubs are really using those rules to their advantage and really being offside a lot. So I think that's a good change. But I think they probably need to wool up on the real changes now. I think they need to give this a good 2 years.
Yes.
Or longer, and just let clubs work it out now.
Yep.
And let coaches innovate. Let ideas bubble, because the more you change, no one can actually sit down in an off season and go, all right, these are the new rules. How can we adjust our game, change our structures? How can we do all that?
How can we have these rules best suit us, you know.
Exactly. Like what players can we recruit that are better suited, or what players can we try and move on that aren't as suited? So
exactly,
they need to let these rules simmer and let clubs and coaches work it out, and that'll
absolutely.
I think that'll be really exciting, because
I think so
I think the product that comes out of this period. I don't think the product's been great. Probably certainly last year, I didn't think the product was great. I think it was great when you watched the top 4 teams play.
Yeah, but that's
Other than
about
that, I thought it was pretty ordinary, because you knew that.
Like Melbourne flogged the Tigers. Like you knew exactly how they were going to win, but yeah,
I would love nothing more on a weekend than to watch every NRL game. I'm a true hard fan.
I'm a tragic too.
I turned more games off last year than I ever have, because the result was done way too early for me.
In like the first 20 minutes, exactly. One game I did love last year. I know if you were at the Roosters at this point, but it was the second game the Broncos played the Roosters, and it was the first game. The Broncos played the Roosters and they beat them.
Yeah.
Well, like in Sydney.
I played that game. Funny stat, crazy stat, might never ever happen again. I played for the Broncos against the Roosters, and we won, and I scored a try.
Yep.
Later in the year, I played for the Roosters
against the Broncos.
Score a try, and we win.
Wow,
how's that?
That's insane. That's like Ken Mamalo last year. This is not necessarily that way, but you know how like he played for the Warriors against the Storm and lost by like I think 30 points plus. He then the next week played for the Tigers against the Storm and lost.
Yeah.
Like you kind of had the reverse of Ken Mamalo. Wow, that's so interesting.
I won both times, so
yes, that's true. I loved like as a Broncos fan, we hadn't had much success in 2020, as I'm sure you know. Watching that game, given the Roosters and like how well they've been the last few years, I was like, let's go. I was at me local and on the big screen, and I was just like, yes, and we win. And I'm like, how was Victor Radley that night? I have to ask, because it was like it definitely didn't. The refs, I feel like low-key had it out a little bit for him that game, because there was a few. One sin bin was definitely justified, but the others and the on reports, I don't think he deserved. Personally, how did you feel in the game?
I agree. I think that was during that period where the refs were just
cracked down.
It was anyway. That's probably another story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, like that's a
and look. I probably agree with you. I probably think
there was one shot that was genuinely like not on, but yeah.
Other than that, I thought we got pretty lucky on that night for those wins.
Yep.
And yeah, Victor was very frustrated, and I understood his frustration.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was.
I saw Victor a few weeks later at the Central Coast because they played at Central Coast. I can't remember who it was. It was actually against the Raiders. Actually, it was Indigenous round against the Raiders. And I asked him, like, how is he feeling, and he goes, mate, I'm fucking ropeable. I'm like, okay, that's fair. And I would be too. He really got the short stick. He really did.
Not speaking out of school, but I don't think it takes too much for Victor to be ropeable. So
that's true. That's also that's true. So back to the quickfire questions. Who was the funniest teammate you played with, no matter what team it was at?
Kane Evans is pretty hard.
I mean, we saw what was written on his tape, so of course.
He's a character, that's for sure. Who else? There's plenty of funny ones.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy Thaiday was funny.
Yep.
Yeah, he was funny.
Who was the biggest prankster?
Easy.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So a good story about him.
Go for it.
When I'd not long moved out of home, and Scott Anderson was living with me at the time. We were both at the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh and his mates around like north side of Brisbane, we sort of grew up in the same area.
Did you play against each other when you were juniors?
No, he was a year older. So he played basketball too.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I was a year younger. Knew Josh really well. Like, we'd known each other for years at this stage.
Yeah.
Him and his mates, who I knew, but not really well, but knew of.
Yeah.
We were sitting down. I think one of us was cooking, watching TV. Like, the lights were on. Next minute, power goes out. We're all like, "Whoa, what's happening?"
Power goes out.
Power goes out. Yeah, power goes out. Next minute, we hear, "Where's Endo?" downstairs. All this banging like that. We hear the door open downstairs, and we're like, "Oh no, what's going on here?" Hear this banging, cluttering, like people running up the stairs. So
You're
like,
thinking you're getting robbed or something.
yeah, Ando's run down the front stairs. I'm in the kitchen. We had like a big island bench, so I've just dropped them like army crawled out. We get out the front, and they've made their way through the house and then come down the front stairs, and they've got balaclavas on, big hockey sticks, these big hockey sticks, and we're all they're just laughing. They've lost it. And me and Ando are like, oh, how embarrassing. Got us an absolute beaut. But
Oh wow.
yeah, he was like, he got actually another story about Ando. There was a car wash just up the road, and I just taken his like new. It was a second hand, but it was a Land Rover.
Yeah.
It was new for him, and it was a Land Rover. It was a beautiful car. Just taking it through the car wash, and there was a McDonald's just there. Josh went through, ordered a couple of soft serves.
After it's freshly washed.
Freshly washed. So you can imagine Ando was really, really impressed.
Oh,
so, yeah.
That's hilarious.
He was the best prankster.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's fucking great. So we covered funniest teammate. Who was the biggest pest at each club?
Oh, Josh Maguire would probably have to be the biggest pest too, because of all those little pranks. He'd always, just like simple stuff that were just annoying. Like he'd put cups in your locker that were full of water, so you open it and it goes all over your clothes, and like just annoying stuff like that. So, Josh Maguire. I'm not giving him a great rap here, but
well, I mean, those stories are great. So, like, of course, he was going to be the biggest pest with those stories that you just mentioned. So that's great. And by the way, I've heard similar from players who've played with him as well. So it's not a bad thing.
No, so. Great bloke. Like really like Moose, but yeah, he can be a pest.
That's fair enough. Just looking at the list, funniest teammate. So of your coaches, obviously you had a lot. You had Justin Holbrook. You had a few at the Titans, but you also had the likes of Trent Robbo, who has gone on to be a 3-time premiership coach. You had Wayne Bennett. Out of all of them, who do you think impacted your life the best or the most, sort of thing?
Impacted my life. It's really hard because I only had Wayne for 12 months, and then I only had Robbo really for 12 months as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very, very short. But I think in 10 years' time, I'll say Robbo, because just the lessons about like life and being a good man are probably things that'll stick with me more than other things. When Wayne took over, there was a lot for him to fix, I suppose, and he had a fair few new recruits, and that was all. That 12 months just went so quickly. So there wasn't a lot of like sort of one-on-one conversation that went on with me anyway. So whereas I probably had a fair bit more of that with Robbo in the time I spent with him. So probably in 10 years' time, I'd probably say Robbo. But it's a tough question because they were short periods with those two.
They weren't long enough to really gauge.
Honestly, I had short throughout. So like 15, I had Wayne, 16, Robbo, 17, Neil Henry, 18, Brennan, 19, Brennan, or half of 19, Brennan, 20
and 21.
Holbrook,
and then
21, Walters, and Robbo. So I didn't really have it. Like Hook was my longest term coach from sort of 09 in 20s. And then we sort of came together in first grade in 11 to 14. So, but that was so long ago now too, and I was so young. So
that
pick up as much as I probably should have.
No, absolutely.
So pretty hard because I had so many coaches in for short stints.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean, the Titans were in all kinds of ways when you joined them. So there was definitely like that, a lot of things going on. I was going to say, and when they brought in Justin, he just won I think 2 in a row with St. Helens over in the UK, and he's an Aussie himself. So it was like basically a homecoming, really. What was it like, and how did the team, receive the reception sort of thing of Holbrook once he got into the facilities and stuff? Because you guys went from Spooners in 2019 to picking it up in 2020 and doing even better last year. I mean, you weren't at the Titans last year, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I knew Justin. He was the assistant under Robbo in 2016.
Yes, he was.
So I knew Justin from my time there, and I knew what we were getting. I knew it would be very Roosters-like in the way we trained, the way our football would evolve to. It was obviously going to take time, and it's still probably developing, to be fair. But he also brought in Michael Gordon. He brought in Michael Gordon as an assistant. Flash had retired the year before, and he had been at the Roosters. So he had a couple of us, and the Roosters method is quite a bit different to certainly everyone that had played at the Titans for a couple of years. That was, and that needed to change. But even for guys like sort of Jared Wallace and sort of those guys that had been at other clubs, other successful clubs, it's still a bit of a different sort of.
Whereas you knew somewhat of what to expect, sort of thing. Yeah,
so he kind of had me and Flash to kind of say, because the way he did it sort of was a real skill focus at the start of the preseason. It wasn't like day one, we're gonna kill you, which a lot of clubs still do. And so the first week, all the older boys are going, what are we doing? Like, we need to work harder than this. And I was like, just relax. This is how the Roosters do it. Yeah. Trust that by March you'll be in more than good enough nick, right? So he had a couple of us there to say, look, just trust.
Again, you've got to buy into what the coach is trying to do. And so he had you and, Flash to be able to say, nah, we've been through this before.
Yeah.
Trust.
And then after a couple of weeks, the boys were like, oh, this is outstanding. Like, we don't feel like we don't feel like we're cooked already. And then you get to like January and February and the boys are like, oh, we're in great shape. And then, COVID kind of hit and it just went all crazy. But like, obviously there was a huge improvement from that year. And probably if the season was only 20 games that year, if it was 25 like a normal year, like, we're coming home.
I reckon
finals footy.
I was going to say, I reckon maybe finals, absolutely.
Yeah, because that last game of that round 20, we put a score on the Knights, who were seventh, I think, and we dusted them.
Yeah, you did.
I
definitely think, if there was 24, 25 rounds.
Yeah, I think finals.
However, though, in saying that, do you think that if COVID, obviously it's fun to speculate and ponder, do you think if COVID wasn't a thing, didn't hit, there wasn't a 10-week break, and the season went on as normal, do you think you guys make finals? Because I think the Titans would have.
I'm probably going to say no. I think that period was good because what the coaches did is they had time to realize that they had to strip everything back before they built on it.
Yep.
I think probably those first two games we played, Canberra flogged us, Parramatta beat us by 50. Everything was just a bit probably too complicated for where we were at as a group. And the coaches, when the season stopped, the coaches got together and went, let's strip it right back and then we'll just add layer by layer slowly.
Yeah.
And so I think that was probably pretty beneficial for our group, particularly we were quite young and not like there wasn't much success in the group. Like we didn't really believe in what we were doing. And so I think that was probably a positive. So I probably think we needed that period to sort some things out.
Yep.
So I'd still probably say we don't play finals.
Okay.
But if they extended the season to proper 24 with the break, we play finals. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'd stipulate to that. Absolutely. Just a few more questions and then I'll let you go. First one is, when you were a winger, obviously, and you also played center sometimes, who was at each club, which player did you love having out on the wing when you're a center? And which player did you love having as a center when you were a winger? I'm guessing Hodjo at the Broncos.
Hodjo, yeah. Like playing outside him. He was pretty special. Great sledger.
Yes, he was.
You get a laugh every now and again too. When I was playing centre, obviously Daniel Tupou was amazing. Probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. But I only had him for a small period.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Anthony Don at the Titans.
Yes, the Don. Yep.
Underrated.
He's now retired, hasn't he?
He's retired too. Yeah, absolute. Yeah, champion bloke as well. So
didn't he break Meady's try scoring?
He did. He broke the record. He doesn't. He reminds us of that quite often. So Yeah, no, great bloke, great to play with too. You just knew what you were going to get. So they're the players you like playing with. Probably those guys.
Absolutely. And which halves did you? Obviously, again, you play with a plethora of different halves and stuff. Hunt, plenty of the Roosters, Titans. Who was your favorite? Halves combination that you liked? Basically running the show for you, sort of thing.
I think I probably played my best footy with Benny Hunt in 2014. I played a lot of right centre that year outside him, and he had a cracker year that year. I think he was maybe 2 or 3 points off the Dally M. And that was his probably real breakout. He was sort of a bench hooker before that. And 2014, Hook gave him the keys to the show, and he had a sensational year. So I'd probably say Benny.
Nice.
Yeah.
And 2015, I hate to bring it up as a Broncos fan. It was a great season for the Broncos, except for the grand final. Don't get me wrong, it was a great season. We went from, I was at the Broncos Manly game in Gosford when we get flogged, right? And that's no discredit to the Broncos, though. We get flogged, and then we go on to make the finals. And Manly don't, by the way, that year. They don't make the finals. The Broncos go on to make the finals and make the grand final. So it was an amazing run. Got the hopes and all that stuff. And then, obviously, what happened, but neither here nor there. Let's let dogs lie. What was that season like in general, and the vibe at the Broncos throughout that whole year? Did you at any point at the Broncos be like, we can do this, we can get there, sort of thing?
Yeah, it was a really frustrating year for me personally, because come off the year before, which was the best year I had in my career.
Absolutely,
and it was the only season I played every game.
Yep.
And I did my shoulder like in round 10, but the year before I'd missed the whole year with my knee, so I just strapped it up and battled on. At the end of that year, I got picked in the Kangaroos squad, but had to pull out, and which I regret quite a bit, because I remember thinking, I think I was only like 22 or around that age, and I thought, like Wayne was coming the next year, and I thought, I'll get my shoulder done, get that right, get a good preseason, and 2015 will be my year. And then that, like, when the Australian team played, everyone had pulled out that year. I don't know if you remember, but Sione Macaudia played on the wing, and he'd only played about 6 NRL games at that stage. But there was just like it was
insane,
really sort of slim pickings. So I probably would have played, because I played a really good year that year. So I probably would have played for Australia, which looking back would have been awesome. But I kind of thought in my head, there's time for that. I'll get my shoulder fixed. But anyway, so 2015, we get flogged in round 1 by South, who were absolutely red hot, won the comp the year before. Just before round 2, I do my calf. They bring in Oatsy, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And then I couldn't get back here. I played a few games of cup. Then I kind of got another chance, and in training, I do my hammy. Then I'm coming back from my hammy, playing for North, and I fracture my eye socket.
Oh.
So I just had like all these little runs of little injuries. I just couldn't get back in the team, and the team was playing great. Like I think we finished third or second or third, I think.
Yep.
So I couldn't get back in the team, which was justified. And then sort of Wayne, I was kind of getting a bit angry not getting picked, because I'd come off a good year, and I thought, I'm not playing Queensland Cup. I want to play first grade. So kind of had a conversation with Wayne, and that was when Hodjo decided to hang the boots up, and Wayne said, like, next year's your year. I just want you around the group, learn as much as you can. So I thought, all right, that's good. So I pretty well travelled with the team for the sort of last 6 weeks of the season, and then into the finals.
And you're 18th man for the grand final, weren't you?
18th man for the grand final, and kind of like on standby right up, because in the major semi,
Hodjo
held his back quite bad. So he didn't train. I don't think he even did captain's run, or he might have done like half a captain's run. Like I did the whole, trained in his place the whole time. And he obviously was good to go. They got him right for the game, and he had a judiciary charge.
He did, yeah. So I was like, if it was an injury, it would have been judiciary sort of thing.
Yeah. So he got off that, and then was able to play. So yeah, didn't get to play. But yeah, I think it was probably like, I don't know when we really thought like we could do this, like, because we were a pretty new group. Like Adam Blair had come, Darius had come. We'd had quite a few, like Benny Barber had left the year before. There was a few that sort of turned over, and it was majority of the same squad with Dubs and Blairy. And we just kind of kept rolling, kept winning. We'd play not that great and we'd win, and then we'd sort of show up and Wayne had like make us feel like we'd lost, like, because some games we weren't playing well, but we were just winning, which is
it'd be literally, you'd be winning games you shouldn't have, and you'd be losing games you should have won, sort of thing.
And so we come to the end of the year and we're like right up in the top 4, and it's like,
you're like, shit, how do we get here?
I don't know if there was a moment. It was just like, let's just keep going and let's see where this takes us. And then, obviously when we beat the Roosters so what, we beat the Cowboys and then we had the week off, then we played the Roosters, and then we dusted them, and they were the minor premiers, and we put on a real good game that game.
I went into the grand final confident because of how we'd beaten the Cowboys. Well, not we, as in you guys had beaten the Cowboys in the first week of finals. So already got the somewhat mental edge over them there. And then you'd beaten the Roosters, again, the minor premiers, tipped to go to the grand final. And I'm like, that when you win that game against the Roosters, I'm like, right, let's go, sort of thing.
Well, I think, that was probably our sort of thoughts too. And then, obviously one of the greatest grand finals.
Easily the greatest, and that's I'm trying to remove my bias, but easily the greatest of the NRL era. Because
this game I've seen, to be fair, it just had everything.
It had everything, as you said, everything. Golden Point as well. I think that's the only NRL grand final that's gone to Golden Point so far, and like it had the missed goal, and just everything. And I hate to say it, but the bloody drop from Ben Hunt, it had everything.
Yeah, it did, and probably immortalizes JT.
And probably immortalizes Ben Hunt, but in a different way.
Unfortunately.
But I was going to say, obviously you being close to Ben Hunt, had a few rippy years with him at the Broncos. How did he handle that, as in from what you could see or notice, like after that, not necessarily the week after, but, the season after at the Broncos? Because I can only imagine it would have been awful for him to feel like that sort of feeling.
Yeah, well, the season after I had left.
That's right.
But obviously, no doubt would have taken its toll. But knowing Benny wouldn't have whinged to too many people. He probably dealt with it all internally, and he's sort of gone on to play for Queensland and Australia, and he's had a hell of a career. So it's obviously part of his career,
Just a blip
of his history,
in the career, sort of thing.
Yeah, what he's done in the games, pretty outstanding. So
it speaks for itself, his career, sort of thing.
So very unfortunate, but he was. The worst thing is he was probably our best player on that night, or very, very close to. Like maybe
Oatsy was on fire as well.
Milf was really good too.
He was,
but without Benny, we're probably not even in that position, to be fair. So it's just it's unfortunate, but
no, that's fair. One last question I got is, what's next for Dale Copley?
Yeah, so I started working at a law firm in Brisbane. What have I come to the end of my 5th or 6th week, I think, this week. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but one I'm really enjoying. I'm in a really good team at Gaydon's Lawyers in the city. So it's obviously a challenge for players finishing up their career. What's next? Where do they go? I obviously knew it was going to be a challenge, and I had sort of identified a few things that I thought was going to be a challenge, but I probably didn't give myself enough credit for some of the things, because a few of the things I've handled, it hasn't really even been a challenge. So just around like work hours, like footy, you show up, you train for 2 hours, you have 4 hours hanging around with your mates, and then train for another hour or two.
And then
it's really, you only have to concentrate for 3.5, 4 hours a day.
Yep.
So I thought sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours would be a real challenge, but that hasn't worried me. So yeah, it's really exciting. I'm absolutely loving the challenge. It's a different challenge, obviously, not so much physical, but it's sort of an intellectual challenge that
And it can help prepare you for when you finish your law degree as well.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm probably learning more from practical sense on the job than I am at uni now. It's the application of the law is very different to the study of it. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Really challenging, really challenging work. Really great group that I've stumbled upon. That have been really good to work with. So yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting times. The next sort of 6 to 8 months working and finishing off my degree. So
nice.
really exciting times.
Yeah, awesome. And I just thought of one last question. It's what advice would you give to any youngsters who would love to, who have aspirations to make it in, any professional sport, whether it's rugby league or not?
Cool. How young are we talking here?
Let's go 10 to 14 years old sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think chasing it, like chase it. You want to be a whatever it is, professional NRL player, AFL, dancer, whatever, musician, chase it. If you want it, hunt it down, write it down, and let people know. Like, tell people this is what you want to do, and go after it. But also prepare as if it's not going to happen, because there's a very, very small percentage of people that become, James Tedesco, Buddy Franklin, Guy Sebastian. Like in all those industries, the percentages are very, very small. So go and get it and grab it and try your absolute backside off to get there. But understand that there's only a very, very small percentage that are going to get there and that are going to make millions of dollars or, are going to end up on the big stage. So study, identify what you're good at, what you love doing, and on the side, pursue a career in that, because it will be a bit of a letdown when you're not the 0.01% that become the superstar that you dreamt of. So by all means, go chase it. And that's, I'm a dad now, so that's exactly what I'll be telling my daughter.
And I was going to say, you mentioned you're going to be a dad for the second time soon. Congrats on that.
Thank you. So I got about 6 weeks, I think, until our second.
Do you know the gender, or are you waiting until?
We're waiting. So
wow. Okay. Old school. Very nice.
Yeah. Well, we did that with our daughter.
Yep.
That was unreal. Great surprise. So we've decided to do that again.
Are you going to try and get her into the NRLW pathways?
She's a bit. She's got the traits. I think she's pretty rough and ready. So we'll see. She'll be able to do whatever she wants. But that's the advice I'll be giving her. Go do whatever
you want, but go for it.
Go chase it, and don't do it by halves. But
absolutely.
Also, study at school.
Yep.
Obviously, I understand schools and academic work's not for everyone. So if it's a trade you want, whatever it is, prepare as if you're not going to get there, but also chase it, which is kind of conflicting, but that's probably
it makes sense. It makes sense. It's exactly. Go for it, but also be prepared for if it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Because it's
but go for it as if it is going to happen at the same time.
Definitely. Yeah, put your eggs, push your chips in, keep just a couple on the side, just in case it doesn't work out.
No, that's it. Click stop recording there, and I'll click stop recording.